Ladies and germs, welcome to NJ Today. My name is McConaughey, and you're either watching this on my official YouTube channel or on mishmashers.com. And for this video, I am sitting down and sharing my thoughts on Star Wars Episode 3, The Revenge of the Sith. For those unaware, I have already given my thoughts on the previous films in the prequel trilogy, and if you want to watch those videos, you can go ahead, head on over there, and we'll meet back here. You good? Good. But if you decided not to watch those videos, I'll go ahead and simply say that I deeply disliked The Phantom Menace, and although Attack of the Clones was a considerable improvement, it still was weighed down by many of the criticisms I had against it. I hadn't seen Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith before now, as I decided to watch them for this video, and so without further ado, let's go ahead and dive deep as I review Episode 3, and if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel or frequent mishmashers.com, as I intend to look at Episode 4, 5, and 6 down the line, as well as a video ranking all of the films, including Episode 7 and 8, and the Rogue One spinoff. The Revenge of the Sith is set 3 years after the Clone Wars have wreaked their havoc. The Jedi Knights are spread out all over the galaxy at the helms of a massive war with the Separatists. The Jedi Council sends Obi-Wan Kenobi to eliminate General Grievous. On the other end, however, arguably the more interesting development is between Anakin Skywalker and Chancellor Palpatine, who, unbeknownst to the public at large, is a Sith Lord. This film, of course, sets the stage for Star Wars A New Hope and concludes the prequel trilogy. This film did considerably better at the box office than Attack of the Clones, which is to be expected. Middle films oftentimes find themselves as the underperformer. An easy parallel would be to mention Empire Strikes Back and likely what will happen with The Last Jedi when Episode 9 is released. The film didn't, however, manage to garner the same attention as The Phantom Menace, which I think holds the same pattern I mentioned before. The film received generally positive marks from critics and audiences alike, oftentimes regarded as the best of the prequels trilogy, with a vocal minority even referring to it as the best of the Star Wars saga altogether. Revenge of the Sith has the most going for it as far as narrative is concerned amongst the prequel trilogy, whereas with the rest of the Star Wars films, you can, perhaps, enjoy the ride with each film. In purely story terms, from the get-go, my primary intrigue in these three films was to see how little slave boy Anakin became Darth Vader, and that's what this film presents. The only real, genuinely intriguing aspect is at last allowed its payoff. The characters come together in a considerable fashion. I find myself hit and miss with Anakin's character in this film, with myself leaning towards saying I enjoyed him, even at times the delivery can come off more than a little melodramatic. The film also suffers from a feeling of self-importance that was never necessarily instilled in myself from a viewer standpoint. I would consider the criticisms I suggested of the Anakin and Princess character still visible in this film, but I would say that Anakin has allowed more opportunities for success than failure. I liked his developing mean streak, and with the way I chose to look at him from the very beginning as an emotionally fragile, angsty teen who can't control his emotions, I think I allowed myself a stance that made him more redeemable in his worst moments in terms of arguable inconsistency. Altogether, the biggest way Revenge of the Sith succeeds, more than Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones, is it comes together with a less workmanlike structure, and with a stronger altogether antagonist. In a Rogue One-like scenario, one can argue this film is predictable simply because you know where it inevitably ends, but at the same time, I think there is something to be said for the fact that I want to see it. Where Phantom Menace squandered Darth Maul, and Christopher Lee's character wasn't even memorable enough to warrant me looking up his name, Palpatine is more up to the task. The film is a little hokey with its religious undertones, Anakin being a false prophet, and Palpatine acting as the proverbial snake in the grass, and all of it can feel heavy-handed, and once more suggest a self-importance it doesn't necessarily earn for itself, but I still enjoyed myself. Palpatine doesn't come across like a manipulative mastermind, but at the very least it can be said that Anakin comes off very susceptible to persuasion. Overall, I would say that Revenge of the Sith has a competent narrative if I look at the sum of things, regardless of fields of where George Lucas lacks, like dialogue or subtlety, for instance, which is still clearly abundant in this film. I also enjoyed the action scenes of this film. I enjoyed the visuals, and I enjoyed the final scenes with Anakin and Obi-Wan. And even if the scenes are predictable, I enjoyed the ride regardless. I don't want to beat a dead horse and ramble, and because of that, I think I will go ahead and summarize my thoughts instead of doing so. The Revenge of the Sith does lack in some very basic fields, and does still maintain some of the nagging problems that Episode 1 and 2 suffered from, but thankfully it benefits from being the payoff of those films. The storyline has heavier stakes and has more bite to it. The action scenes, although still lacking a certain upper-tier quality, are more dramatic, and although not as important feeling as they might have been intended to be, they do feel more significant than any scenes in the previous films. I would say the acting delivers more than it misses, all in all, and although our knowledge of the inevitable dampens the payoff, it's still satisfying and mostly well done all the same. True to the world. Warts and all, I would say that The Revenge of the Sith was an above-average film. Definitely the best of the prequels, and a satisfying film. But of course, that's only my opinion, and I'd love to know what you think. And so, if you loved or hated Revenge of the Sith, make sure to let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe as I intend to share my thoughts on the preceding episodes soon. Thanks for watching. My name's McConaughey from Mishmashers.com, and I'll see you next time when I share my thoughts on Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope.